Hey, Leroy, how are the roads today?
The roads weren't terrible, but the snow wanted to freeze onto the windshield wipers, so the visibility wasn't great.
Right. Oh. What's it supposed to be like tomorrow?
Sunny and nice, although it's cold, but
Okay. Well, we can handle cold as long as it's dry.
yeah, that helps a lot, don't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Right.
whatever it is, we'll have to take what they send.
Right. Have you got any seeds started yet?
No, I'm gonna wait until I'm gonna be gone for the first or when? Week of March 7th. So there won't be anybody around to water and stuff. So I'm gonna wait until I'm gonna get some flats ready before then. And as soon as I get back, I'm gonna start some flowers.
No. That sounds like you must be going to make a trip someplace south, huh?
No, I'm going
Warmer.
east. I'm going east.
Oh, that's right. You're from Maine, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm not going that far east. I'm going to Manitowoc. I'm going to Manitowoc.
Yeah, that's not that far.
No. My wife's going south, but I'm just going east.
Well, as long as it's someplace different, that's what counts. Is that
Yeah.
when spring break is?
That's when Ellsworth has it, yeah.
Okay. Okay. I wasn't sure. Oh. I think it will, by the end of March, it should be daylight at this time of the night too, for when a meeting starts, right?
Almost, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's almost light now.
Yeah, yeah, it's really not bad. Well, we'll see what happens. I think it depends upon what Sundegard wants to do too.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not Sundegard, it's Sundgard. I just put that, I don't know why I put that in. I think I knew somebody that was a Sundegard.
Okay.
Yeah. Familiar names. Oh, we got something in the chat. How many volunteer hours required for 2022?
Zero,
For
aren't they?
2022. Volunteer hours, isn't it our normal 24?
I think they left it at 0.
2022?
I think they left it at 0 for 2022 because they're not sure what's going on with I think they only have education hours again.
Okay. What about, and does the topic of climate change count as for education hours? I say that's a question to address to Jay.
I'm going to count it.
Oh, good. Well, that was from Kathy.
Oh, that was from Kathy. Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to count it anyway.
Okay.
Of course, you get half of those taken care of when you do your onboarding light.
Right. Which you're going to remind everyone, I see.
You betcha.
It's a good thing. Upload, but I don't need to. Okay. Oh. Where's my, oh, there. Oh, it looks like we're almost ready to get started, huh?
Yeah, I'm
2 more
just
minutes.
running through here and see if when our guest gets on, I got to make her a co-host.
Right. How many people have been coming to these meetings, these Zoom meetings?
We had about 60 the last meeting.
Okay.
I forget exactly, but it was right around 60, either 59 or 60, 61, something like that.
That's pushing how many we'd have in person at it, you
Yep.
know, sometimes too.
Yep.
Are you going to relay to people a little bit about what Dr. McGinnis had to say?
Yep. Yep, I might need someone to.
Yeah, the meeting for the meeting for budget is not at Buddy's Bakery. It's not budget. It's not at Buddy's Bakery. It's going to be at the library, Hudson Library, on March 1st at 10 a.m. And it's for the financial review. And I don't know if Kathy was, I didn't know Kathy was coming, but that's okay. And I did send an email out, and I'll send an email reminder of that morning too, or the day before. Buddy's Bakery isn't always open anymore. That's why, you know, they've got that wonderful conference room to use, but I
Sometimes you
went there
can't
two
get
different times. Yeah, sometimes you can't get in because they close up because they don't have help or something. I don't know why, but especially on a Tuesday, they wouldn't necessarily consider that they'd have to stay open. So, okay. Well, I'm going to mute myself unless, and I'll try to keep an eye. I'll try to help keep an eye on chat.
Cool, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bridget,
Yes.
I made you a co-host. Would it be possible for you to make our speaker a co-host when she joins us? You want to try
can-
anyway?
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna probably transition to my computer. I'm on my phone right now, so I don't know how to work all those little gadgets, but yeah, I certainly will.
All right, and if you can't, I'll find her and do it myself, but hopefully you can, seeing as you are a co-host now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay.
Well, we got 35 people on and it's 6:31, so I reckon we might as well get her going, eh? Welcome, everyone. We are recording this again, so I should be able to get the recording sent out to everyone who would like to see it. Going down our agenda, remember to get your onboarding light done in the next 5 weeks, basically by March 31st. You have to do this in order to be able to log any continuing education or volunteer hours for this coming year, this year, 22. And you get 5 of your continuing education hours by doing the onboarding light. So that's half of them. Don't forget Growing Together. It's our virtual replacement for Garden U. That's coming up on March 12th. You need to register by March 4th. The next thing I had is we are planning on holding our plant sale this year, first Saturday in June. And we are also considering moving to in-person meetings. The board just had a meeting with Dr. McGinnis. Christine McGinnis is one of our members, and he is her husband, and he's a doctor, and he's quite up on the COVID situation. And he thought the way it's looking, that it very well should be feasible to get back to starting our meetings in person. So we're considering as soon as next month, possibly. I've contacted the church where we hold our meetings to see about the availability of the room. And I actually just got an email back, but like about 5 minutes ago, I saw it, but didn't have time to read it yet, but I think the meeting room will be available. We will probably mask. I'm not sure if we'll have any refreshments for the first one or two. We're still got to decide on things. Assuming that everyone, pretty much everyone is vaccinated, and you just use a little common sense, and hopefully it should not be an issue. Would anyone else like to ask anything or say anything about this idea? I need to go to my email for a minute and help someone get onto the meeting, so I'll be right back.
I do have one thing to say about our idea of opening up the meetings, is that there's a caveat to it all, is if there's a new variant that comes out or something changes. If the trend keeps going down, then that's great for us. But if something changes, then we'll have to reevaluate where we're at. And I saw somebody mentioning that there is about, could we do a Zoom alternative too for the in-person meetings? And I believe that we're looking into having a volunteer. I think Ken Colby has volunteered to try to make that happen.
Yes, that's right. So that's where we are on that. I just got this sent out. Had one member who was having problems logging in, so I resent the invitation to her. See if that works. Our next meeting, we will have meteorologist Sven Sundgaard talking to us about climate change. As for this meeting, the speaker is Aleisha Miller. She's Community Development Environmental Educator for St. Croix County. She's going to talk about rain gardens. I'm going to stop this share. And I don't know if she's with us yet or not. Have you seen her, Bridget? There she is, by golly, I see her. She's muted right now, though.
I am?
Now you're not.
Okay, wait a second. I'm not, right?
Now you're good. Yep.
Good. Am I able to share my screen? I think I can. You'll have to enable share screen.
Okay, I will see if I can't do that right now. There we go. Now you're a co-host, so you should be able to.
Right. Well, first I will just say hello. It's nice to meet you all. My name is Aleisha Miller, and I do environmental education programs throughout St. Croix County. And I have a little bit of a passion for native plants and for rain gardens. And I got to know Bridget last summer because she participated in the Wisconsin Master Naturalist class that our area did. And we have another class also starting on March, I believe is the date, is our first date. So if anyone's interested in learning more about the Master Naturalist class and what that's about, I can get you more information on that. There is still time to register. Just checking the date. It's March 19th. Sorry, it's a Saturday for our first class. So Bridget reached out to me and said, do you have any ideas for speakers? And I said, yeah, here's a list. And I also do rain gardens. And Bridget said, hey, we would like that as well. So a little background about me. I graduated from UW River Falls with an environmental science and conservation major. And I have worked for St. Croix County ever since. I'm also contracted by the school district, actually not the school district, by the River Falls Municipal Utility to do energy education programs. And in the process, I have lived in River Falls for 20 some years. And after we got our first house, the first thing I did, well, not the first thing, but one of the things I wanted to do was to change to my plantings, and I got to add some a rain garden. So I'm kind of excited to share this with you. Now, I am putting into the chat a list of books that if you're interested in native plantings, attracting birds or attracting butterflies, these are great books to help you get some ideas. You may have heard of Doug Ptolemy before. He has a great guide, and also in here, it's a great book, a list of plants and the insects that they attract, the butterflies they attract. So it's a great guide. Also, I'm going to be referencing that first one that's listed there, the Blue Thumb Guide to Rain Gardens. And we have copies of this publication at our office in Baldwin. So if you're interested in a copy, I also have them available, and you can have one for free. This one here. Going to do is it's going to slide. There we go. All right. So again, I'm Aleisha Miller. I work in St. Croix County, and I love rain gardens and I love native gardens. So a native garden, using plants that are native to this area. And why rain gardens? Oh, you know what? I'm going to escape out of this right away because I want to show you something that is pretty amazing. Here. And then I want to share this. So why rain gardens? This is why. Can you see my video? I can't see you anymore, so I'm wondering if you can see my video. If someone could just tell me.
Yes, we can
Yes.
see it. It's slow though,
You-
but we can
Okay.
see it. Yep.
Okay.
I opened it up, a full window. It's lovely.
Okay. Well, hopefully you can see all the monarchs that come to my garden. So why a rain garden and why native gardens? This is why. I have hundreds, literally hundreds of monarchs that go through my yard in August and September. And so I only had that because I had put in this rain garden. So go back to why rain gardens. Well, for me, I like the wildlife. that they bring. But also, I really, really like this. Help protect our water because of things that we do. We are living on the land, we're working on the land, and we're really good at directing water away from us and towards the low point, which happens to be all of our water, lakes, rivers, streams. And they carry with it, that stormwater carries with it all sorts of things. Not only are we good at directing water away, but we have a lot more infiltration. So when the rain would fall, it would fall and it would soak into the ground. We used to have more evapotranspiration, means that the plants are drinking it and putting it back up into the air. And just very little runoff. And as we start adding impervious surface to that, so homes, roofs, buildings, parking lots, roads, we end up getting more and more runoff and less evaporation and much, much less infiltration. So if we can add those places where the water can soak in the ground, that really is going to help. Something else too that this slide doesn't talk about, but is that with climate change, the amount of water we're getting throughout the entire year is the same, but the way we get it is very different. So instead of being short bursts of rain, light rains throughout the day, we're getting large dumps of rain at one time, and the ground just can't soak up the water that fast. So if we can provide areas for those waters to sit and infiltrate, that's going to help all around. As we're really good, I said before, at getting rid of water. So here's a typical putting in a subdivision. And a lot of times we think of our yards as being able to soak up the water, and they can a little bit, but because we have driven over all of that to regrade and to build, we've compacted the soil a lot. And so what the soil used to be able to take and hold, it can't hold that any longer. So this is just showing how much water can infiltrate in sand in a non-compacted area, 13 inches of rain in an hour versus compacted 1.4 inches of rain in an hour. Clay, again, clay is actually pretty high as long as it's not compacted. So 9.8 inches per hour down to 0.2 inches per hour. So having those spaces where water can infiltrate and soak into the ground are really important. And we've gotten really good at collecting our water, concentrating it to one area, conveying it away from our houses, and then centralizing it and sending it down the drain. Well, your house can have a big impact. So a house, what is this house? Do I have it labeled? I think I have it labeled later. So this is a house with a patio with an inter-rain is going to have 925 gallons of water, the driveway, plus your yard that isn't as impervious as it could be because of the way that we construct. You end up with a lot of water that can run off with a 1-inch rainfall. That's a lot of water every year that goes into the street, which then as it travels, especially this time of year, even with snow melt, you have sand and salt that gets dissolved in the snow melt and it washes down our gutters and into our storm drains. And the storm drains, they just take the water straight to a river or a stream. They don't treat the water. It's not like it's going to a sewage treatment plant to get cleaned up first. We can have pollution of our streams. We can have sediment deposited in the streams, which helps our plants grow, right? But it also helps algae grow. And so we have lots of problems now in our lakes with algae. So doing something like this, where you still are collecting and concentrating and moving the water away from your home, but keeping it on site with helping it soak into the ground really helps. You might notice that in this picture, this is in the city of Burnsville, and they're actually also taking road water as well. So they're taking storm water from the road as well in this rain garden. So here is, let's see if this video works. Yeah, so it rains, and then the water flows across the surface of the ground into your area, and it soaks down to the ground. Oh, we have birds chirping because they like it too. has these lovely roots and less compacted soil is really great for letting the water soak into the ground. So kind of a basic overview of what a rain garden should look like. It should be pretty shallow, 9 inches maximum. It should be dry in 48 hours or less. It might need some compost or soil amendments. Really deep rooting plants helps it a lot because those roots, they create spaces to let the water go down. You can design it to fit your landscape. Either some people like more of a formal looking, some like the more natural looking. You can select plants to attract for wildlife. And here's the cool thing too, rain gardens work in the winter too. So a lot of times we think, well, the ground is frozen, but it is frozen, but because of the roots of these large, not large, I don't want to say that, large rooting plants, roots of prairie plants are so thick and deep. Every year, some of those roots die and they leave air spaces. And so the water can soak into the ground. So if you are interested in building a rain garden, where should it be? Well, one thing to remember is that when water soaks into the ground, it doesn't go actually straight down. It can go down and out to the sides because it's like a sponge, right? It's soaking up all that water. So you want it at least 10 feet from your foundation because you don't want the water going back into your basement. They're great with your landscaping. You can do shade gardens, but they're harder to do with natives. We don't have as many good natives that work in a shady location. But that being said, you do not have to use natives to do a rain garden. It also should not be a spot where water already sits, because if water already sits there, it's not infiltrating, it's not soaking into the ground. And so you want to pick a point where it doesn't, where it doesn't pond. And the flatter the site is better. So you can make it flat, because what you want essentially is a flat bottom on the very bottom of your basin there. And of course, not over a septic system because you're already infiltrating water there. You don't want to infiltrate some more. So questions to ask yourself. You can size a rain garden. Some people want to be like gung-ho, catch all their stormwater, and you can size your rain garden big enough to do that. Or you might be like, that doesn't fit my yard. I just want to do this little corner, and that is totally fine too. Over this part. I think that you guys probably kind of know about your soil, what it feels like. But the best way to figure out the spacing of the size of your rain garden for how much water you want to collect is to do a perk test, so a percolation test. So you want to dig a hole in the middle of the spot where you're thinking about putting it, 8 inches deep, 8 inches across. You're going to fill up your hole and you're going to mark it with, use a tongue depressor for an hour so that the area all around this outside edge of that hole, the water is going to flow out this way. So you want this area to be saturated. Then you're going to fill it up again to that. From that point, you're going to time how long it takes it to drop an inch. That will give you a good idea of how fast your soil infiltrates. People are worried about mosquitoes, and with a rain garden, it should be draining within 48 hours. So you wouldn't have that problem because mosquitoes need longer than that to go through their life cycle. Just told you about that. So this is kind of showing you how to make a slope and flatten it out, because what you want is for the water not to come in and all sit on this side over here where it's deeper. You want it to come in and spread evenly across the entire bottom of the rain garden. So your rain garden actually ends up being flat on the bottom. Space here because there's that 6 inches that's labeled there for the depth. But something to know is that a lot of that 6 inches gets filled back in with mulch. And so that mulch also helps provide space for that water to soak in. Ideas of ways to direct water to your rain garden. So maybe you don't want it next to your The landscaping isn't fit for it to have it just 10 feet from your house. Maybe it needs to be farther away. So you can do things like just a regular downspout directed that way. You could bury a downspout and have it pop up in your rain garden. You can make a dry bed, a dry creek bed for the water to flow through. And this one down the bottom corner on the bottom right there, that is a rain garden that actually took water from the backyard and they sent it all the way up to the front yard. That was quite the engineering feat, but gravity is pretty cool. And so they just use gravity to have the water flow to the front yard. In general, when you have the water coming into your rain garden, you want your rain garden perpendicular to the downspout to make it easier for the water to spread out as it comes into that rain garden. So first off, you're going to plant plugs or actual growing plants. You don't want to put seeds in because every time it rains, the seeds get washed out. A mixture of forbs and sedges and grasses, but really you can choose what kind of fits your style. The important thing is that you put water tolerant plants in the bottom. So those ones that like to be a little bit wet. So plants, what might you find? So you might find oxeye sunflower, wild indigo, azure aster, prairie phlox. This one's more of a wild meadow type in front. All the way through. Science Museum of Minnesota, if you've ever been there, it's their backyard, their mini golf area. And these native plants are going to be over to invite those native insects as well. Sorry, I just read the can you do this with a sump pump drainage area? Again, I'm assuming that the sump pump drainage area, oh, I know what you're saying. So you're pumping water out of your basement, like that kind of pump, and it's coming out. As long as it's not like, okay. So as long as it's not like a field, like, you know, a septic field has pipes that are perforated, let the water soak out of it. As long as that's not what it's going into, if it's just pumping out and that's just your bare field, then yes. But if you have pipes coming out and then the water is soaking in from those pipes, then I might not do it there because you want that water from your sump pump to soak into the ground. But if it's just like, so at my cabin, we have one and it's just a pipe that comes out the side of the house and it just squirts it down the hill. That would be a good place for us to put a rain garden, yeah, for the water to catch. So the one thing about native plants is that they invite these lovely native animals, but something to remember is that you want to have plants for both the caterpillar and the adult butterfly if you're trying to attract butterflies. And here's my favorite poster of all time, which is the prairie roots, because it just shows you how deep they go. So on the far left, this tiny little spot over here, that's lawn grass. So your lawn is going to grow roots about as deep as is tall. So if it's 3 inches tall, it's about 3 inches in roots depth. But our prairie plants, because they were developed ways to survive drought and to find water, they have super deep roots and they have really good water absorbing capacity, so they can suck up a whole bunch of water, and they can also help that water drain down farther into the soil. That's in case someone wants to know how long they really are. So the long one on there is 10 feet. Syndrilic blazing star is 14 feet. So we're talking feet deep. It's very, very deep root system. Is the rain garden where they sent the water from the backyard all the way up to the front yard. So actually it pops up in here, and that's the first year, and then that's the second year. A rain garden doesn't have to be all natives. It can be cultivars as well. Oh, yes. Okay. So first of all, always call digger's hotline before you dig. Figure out the size and location. Design the shape and select your plants. I have another slide on plants that I'm going to go through next. Prepare the soil. So I'm going to go through this whole list of things as with pictures to show you what I did with my rain garden here. Some plants. And if you're interested in a video, Metro Blooms is a good organization to go see their website. This is the mosquitoes question. As long as you're draining every 48 hours, the mosquitoes don't have time to go through their life cycle. So it's not like you're making a swamp in your backyard. That is my reminder now to go to my next. So, installing a rain garden from start to finish. First off, I used that Blue Thumb guide to rain gardens. It was written by like 3 nationally known stormwater management people, native plant people. And we're lucky enough that they actually came from Minnesota, St. Paul. So this is a really good guide. And again, if you're interested in having this guide, I have some in the office you're welcome to have. And also you can check them out from the library. They're in the Moore system. And I decided that I was going to have a rain garden here. And so what I ended up doing was removing all of that sod. First, I had to come up with a plan. And I'm going to go, can I go back a picture? I can. You might be able to see I don't have gutters on my house. And so we were having water coming down right here, coming down really fast and hard. And so in my design, I created a dry creek bed. So this is my house right up here in the corner. This is the corner where the water would come down. And then this became my dry creek bed. So I like plants. So I went a little native plant crazy when I went to the store. You don't have to have quite the wide variety as I did, but maybe I'm talking to other plant lovers, so it doesn't phase you as much. But if you're getting into natives the first time and some people are just like, it's too overwhelming, there are too many plants, pick, and then it's easy to figure out what's a weed and what's a plant, right? Want to keep. So I had a load of mulch dropped off and my border of my stream bed. So this is the area here. A note on mulch. You want to use double shredded hardwood mulch. This is important because there it is. Because wood chips like that, they will float. And so if you have the water going into your rain garden and then the mulch floats and moves away, it's not doing its job, right? And it's getting on top of your plants. So the double shredded hardwood mulch, it ends up curling along the edges and it binds itself together. So you also want to edge your rain garden. And the reason is to keep the long grass out. On mine's surrounded by sidewalk. So that was my edging. But something to keep in mind is you want to choose something that doesn't do frost heaving. So this rain garden has a frost heave problem, you can see with their edging. And then also to make sure that if your rain garden, in this rain garden here, there's a pipe. I hope you can see that white pipe there. And so the water's coming in through that pipe. But if you don't have a pipe going into your rain garden, make sure your edging lets the water go into your rain garden. Otherwise, it'll just go around the rain garden and it won't work like you want it to. To my rock. It's me and my nephew. He's the muscle of the project. So in the corner here, we just took out the landscaping that was there and then put down this fabric for going underneath the dry creek bed. My husband is helping at the time too. So here we're installing the edging, and then, come on now. Filling in the rock. I used recycled rock, so whatever I got. This, going, how can I mark this? I don't have a chalk line. I wonder if shaving cream will work. So that's my shaving cream line of where I was thinking the edge of my path would be. And so there's my path. See it in the middle up here, this hole, that was my perk test. So again, I dug an 8-inch hole. I filled it up, let it drain down for a while, filled it back up again. And then I measured how long it took it to drain, an inch. And I had a really good perk right there. So that was fun to see. So I have learned that I like sod cutters. And so we run to the sod cutter and you can set your depth. And what was nice was that when let me go back here. The center circle area, this was going to be my rain garden part. This edge is my path. And I was going to have more plants back here. So this part in the middle, I was going to have deeper because that's where the water was going to soak in. So with your sod cutter, you can set depth. So I was able to go out and cut the sod off, and then we rolled it up. Just FYI, if you didn't know, sod's heavy. I didn't know. I rolled my first roll is too big. Here we are cleaning up the sod and then reshaping and showing where the rain garden is going to be. And in this area right here, after we had taken off all the sod, then we rototilled it. So we wanted to make sure that there wasn't a compaction zone underneath there. And so we rototilled it and got it nice and soft in there. And we added the mulch. So this is a part where you can go one of two ways. Some people like to put the mulch in the rain garden first and then plant. Some people like to plant and then put their mulch in. Depends on what you feel like doing. I like to put the mulch in first and then go back and put my plants in afterwards. Put the mulch in, and then again, you're going to plant plugs, not seeds. And so I'm sure you know, there are many fun gardening sales coming up in the spring. I went to the Friends gardening sale that's held at the Minnesota State Fairgrounds, and they have a whole natives section. So that was fun for me to go and first off, pick out what plants I wanted based on what animals, insects I wanted to attract, and then go and see what I could get. So that was fun. And then planting tools, we had a bulb planter that we could drill down with. I just like to use a shovel. So I was using just a little trowel myself, but you can use a shovel or a bulb drill. You're spacing them fairly close, about 1 square foot. That being said, if you're getting a plant that you know is going to grow bigger and needs more space, you can give it some more space. So again, if you're not quite sure if it's a weed or a plant, you can make your life easier by not being me and only picking a couple things. So a little Sesame Street reminder that one of these things is not like the other one. And so if you just plant a swath of, this is Ohio spiderwort, this is a path rush, you're going to know what it is because it's all the same, right? So this is my then 4-year-old, now 14-year-old, helping us plant. So we spaced out our plants where I wanted them, and then the completed rain garden. So I came back later and I put different mulch for my path here. Now, once you plant your rain garden, sometimes people think it's going to hold the rain, so I don't have to water it, but that's not true at first. You have to really water it at first to make sure all those plants, those plugs, get their roots growing and they take on. And then after the first year, then you don't have to worry about watering it. I never water my rain garden anymore, but I did that first year. So this is in May. And I just wanted to note that I still had mulch left over in my driveway, and I covered it up. And the reason I covered it up is so that when it rained, the water didn't wash the mulch and whatever's in the mulch down my driveway into the road and into the Kinnickinnick River for me, which is what's my closest river is. And since the whole reason I was putting this rain garden in was to protect my river, I wanted to make sure I protective things I put on the ground as well. Ironically, later that year, there was someone coming to fix a pole in front of our house. And they're like, hey, you want me to take a picture? So they went up in their cherry picker and they took a picture. So this is August of that first year. So you can see quite a few of those plants, they really took off. And then here comes the rain. And so the rain is coming down and it travels on, let me go back this way. So it comes down here and then it comes out this way. And then it can also come out this way. And it comes down and into my rain garden. And I will say for maintenance, a lot of maintenance of the path, other than right here and right here on my rock waterway, because it starts to fill in. And it's amazing how that silt starts to fill in and then it gets higher and higher. And then all of a sudden I'll have water coming down my path instead of going into the rain garden. So I will go in about every 3 or 4 years, dig up the rock, dig out all the sediment that has filled in, and then put the rock back in. Rain garden in the winter, which is also a nice winter interest. So again, we get a rainstorm in the winter, it will hold water, but I get birds that sit out there and they hang out on the seed heads that are left behind. Here's a rainstorm where it rained in the winter and you can see all this water was captured and it slowly soaked to the ground, which is pretty cool to see. I was ignoring the chat. Let me look at the chat. So Barb has worked with Rusty at 2 different places before he moved, and they had a modified rain garden for over 15 years. Rain garden is not 10 feet from my house. That being said, this part right here is probably the shallowest part, and it's probably 8 feet, so it's close. I inspired any neighbors to install a rain garden. No, but I will say, you saw my butterflies. I'm going to show you them again later. I know that people who go for walks in my neighborhood, they specifically walk by my house because they want to see when the butterflies come. And then they ask me what plants I'm planting. So hopefully that will also inspire them as well. Are my favorite, I don't know, can I have a favorite native? Probably not. I like them all. But these are the ones that I have in my rain garden. And I'll tell you why I have them. So anise hyssop, it smells like anise, and you could just kind of brush it even when it's dry. And so it smells really cool. The bees love it. So it's a good pollinator plant. Blue-eyed grass is really pretty and short. It's about 6 inches tall. And it's one of the spring ones to come up. Bottle gentian has a really pretty purple flower. It gets about 3 feet tall, 2 to 3 feet tall. Butterfly weed. If you want monarchs, you want butterfly weed because this is in the milkweed family. And so this is that host plant because if you want to get the monarchs, you also have to get the eggs to land there, right? So here's my story. I planted in my rain garden. This is my rain garden. I planted 6 little tiny plugs of butterfly weed. And by the end of the summer, I was afraid they weren't going to make it because they got eggs laid on them and they were being chowed down, but they made it. So that was really cool. But something I did notice, what's nice about butterfly weed is it's short, 2 feet. So it's a nice edge plant, but it did get beat out by other plants, but that was okay because it moved other places. And so I was okay with that. It's really cool. And it's orange. It's a cool plant. Royal catchfly. I have royal catchfly in my garden, and it's one of the 2 native red plants that we have. Most of our plants, flowers are not red. And the reason is because bees cannot see that color. So this is a hummingbird attractor, and I get hummingbirds that will come to it. And I learned it this summer. I finally figured out why it's called royal catchfly, and it's because it's sticky. And so insects get stuck to it. And the insect I was looking at was the infamous Japanese beetle, but that's why. This is our second and number 2, and the only 2 that we have. Cardinal flower is another red flower. So these are 2 native plants. Is related to cardinal flower. And so Rusty, when he would talk about putting plants in, he's like, if I'm putting in grape lobelia, I'll put in cardinal flower too. I'll just, if one hits or the other one hits, I think it's pretty cool. So he tries to get them both in there because he figures cardinal flower is a little testier. Pieweed, I love Joe Pieweed. Joe Pieweed can get really tall. You may have a cultivar that is Little Joe. And so that one gets about 3 feet tall. Joe Pieweed actually gets about 6 feet tall. So it's a nice middle of your rain garden plant. Some grasses. So June grass is a nice native plant. It bunches nicely. So a lot of times we have Carl Forester grass as our bunching grass for our landscaping, but June grass is a nice alternative. That's a native plant. It's this yellowish greenish when it flowers, and then that pretty brown when it seeds out. Meadow blazing star. If you want to know what the monarchs are eating in my rain garden, it's this. It's meadow blazing star. There are lots of different kinds of blazing stars and liatrices, but this is the best one. I have 2. That's not true. I have 3 because I have a cultivar on the side of my house that rarely has monarchs at it. I have prairie blazing star, and I have meadow blazing star, and meadow blazing star always has the butterflies on it. Ohio spiderwort. This is a nice early spring one. It's kind of cool because it's blue too, and it's a water loving one, so it can be a little bit wetter than other plants can be. Little purple coneflower. So instead of having the petals that stick out, they're more of a droopy petal, but the flower itself is still stiff and upright. Path rush. This is a short 3 inches. I have it along the edge of one of my dry creek beds, and my hope is that eventually it will fill in, but I will say it's been a slow process for it to fill in the way I wished it would have been. Pennsylvania sedge. This, on the other hand, has fulfilled and gone beyond my wildest dreams in that I also go and I pull it out. But if you have a wet spot or a slightly damp spot, sedges grow in wet areas and they look like grasses. So you can kind of get away with putting a sedge in instead of a grass. And it only gets about it drops over. So it's got a nice shape to it. I also use this on my property. I have a corner of my lot my lot's lower than the neighbor's is, and the water was coming down their driveway around the sidewalk, and it was digging a gully into my side. So I put this there to be essentially a grassed waterway, and so that's holding that soil in place now. So it's really good for that too. Porcupine sedge, another really fun one because of the flower head, the seed head that gets there. Blazing star. So this is the other blazing star that I have on my rain garden and around my house. And you'll notice that the purple flowers, they're closer together, and it must not be as good of nectar. And so the butterflies will go to it, the monarchs will go to it, but not as much as the prairie blazing star. The meadow blazing star. Prairie coreopsis. This is a nice little plant, and it's a really good edge if you want something to really fill in, because it will spread and it will fill in, but it only gets about so I have it along the edge of my path. Sleeve coreopsis, another beautiful plant. This one's the taller coreopsis, maybe 4 feet. Wild lupin. If you can get wild lupin to grow, you're awesome. It is a finicky plant. It does not like to be transplanted, but if you can get it to grow, it is the only food source for the Karner blue butterfly, which is an endangered species. So if you can get the wild lupin to grow, that's awesome. As you're driving from like past Duluth along Lake Superior and you see all that lupin up there, It's gorgeous and pretty, but it's not the wild lupin. So you gotta make sure you get the wild lupin. Oh, coneflower, another tall one. This one is a little bit more floppy. Coreopsis. I'm going to answer that question at the end. That was the end of my slide. So here's my rain garden throughout the years. So May 2011 is when I installed it. August, so you can see the plants grow quite quickly. And my husband is always like, can't believe how quickly they fill in every spring. Now this is 2012. So you'll notice that what I did, just because it's in the front yard and it was my first year, I cut back the thickness that first year. I don't do that every year. Here's June. So again, there's April and there's June. So this is October. This is 2013. It's filling in even more. Just my little rain garden sign. I put that in every year, but there's more and more stuff here, so you can't see it very well anymore. Here she's older. Just to show you how tall the plants are. 2015, and here is the August of 2015, so you can really see how it's filled in, and then those lovely monarch butterflies are filling in there. But here are a few more resources, and maybe I'll copy these down and send them to Bridget, and she can share them with you so that you don't have to try and write them down. But in that Blue Thumb guide to rain gardens, and then a few other, the how-to manual for homeowners, yard care, Wisconsin native plant sources. So your question about where can I get prairie coreopsis is so where can you get prairie coreopsis? So like I said, the Friends plant sale in the fall, no, sorry, the spring, Metro Blooms, or no, Wild Ones. Go into the Wild Ones website, and they do native prairies or native plant sales. And they usually do like it's a chapter fundraiser. So there's usually 2 or 3 in the Twin Cities. Dragonfly Gardens in Amory has native plants. Earthscapes in River Falls has a few native plants. Prairie Moon Nursery is a good place to get seeds. So if you want to try and start your own plants. A list that I have here. Kinnickinnick Natives in River Falls has natives, though I will say I live in River Falls and I've never gotten plants there because whenever I've gone, they've been out. So they do things, but they're gone pretty fast. Landscape Revival in St. Paul would also be another place to look for plant sales. And you may be aware of this when you're looking and buying plants. Oh, Prairie Moon sells plugs too. That's good. And then Kinning Natives, I have in the past for our town parks. Also, Farrell's has some natives. Oh, when you're buying plants, you want to be careful of neonicotinoids. So those are pesticides that are used to a lot of actually bulbs. When they come into the US, they have to have had that so that we're not transporting funguses and bacteria and that type of things from other countries. But it is a systemic pesticide, and it gets into the tissues of the plant, and then it will be passed along to anything that eats that plant. So any insects that eat those plants, like our native bees and our native butterflies, and then they will also die. So you want to ask and make sure they're not putting neonicotinoids onto the plants. If you're buying native plants from a native plant store, I would very likely, they wouldn't do that. They would know not to do that. Contact information. Well, Dragonfly and Amory has a new 3,000 square foot greenhouse devoted entirely to native plants. I know what I'm doing for Mother's Day. That is awesome to know. Thank you for sharing that with me. Very cool. Any questions they want to ask me about any of this? Oh, prairie restorations in Scandia too. That's a good place to go to. I'm in the chat, or you can just ask me. Aaron, thank you for reminding me. I said I would answer and then I forgot. Okay. So this Blue Thumb Guide to Rain Gardens, I love it because it tells you about your property a little bit. It gives you how to install a rain garden. It gives you some ideas for what to put in it, but the very back of it, it's got a whole list of plants and things that will work. So shade rain gardens, hostas will work in a shade rain garden along the outer edge. Ferns, columbine, nard, goat's beard, ginger, wild ginger, sorry. Large leaf aster, so the aster family. Bilbies. The sedges will be good in a shade garden. Turtle head, it's a white native flower. So rose turtle head, which is a pink native flower. Hearts. Dwarf bush honeysuckle. I will provide a list of all the resources I mentioned, yes. Wild geranium. Or corabells. So not as many native ones, but also plants that we have around here. Spice bush, cardinal flower. Else. When I'm thinking about this too. So do I have a, maybe. Well, I'm going to show you the Blue Thumb website. So why Blue Thumb? Because we want our water to be blue, not green. So it's planting for clean water is their line. But what's kind of nice is, so they have these projects for your yard. So native plant gardens, rain gardens, shorelines, lawns to legumes is promoting bee-friendly lawns, help those native pollinators. And then this plant finder is kind of cool because you can put into it light exposure, soil moisture, plant types, bloom colors and bloom months. So you can get that change of color throughout the months. They used to have also like for a rain garden or for a native garden, and they don't have that in here anymore. So that kind of makes me sad. But I think it's because with the rain garden, because it's draining so quickly, you find that the plants survive anyway. As the base for my dry creek. So it was a fabric. It was a landscaping fabric that I put down at the bottom. Just put the rock on top of that. And I will say that now I have plants growing in my dry creek bed, but I don't care because now I have gutters. So it just fills in for me. Okay, 1 second here. Questions? Or
Any
thoughts
more
or comments or?
questions?
With one later, you can definitely contact me and say, hey, I'm trying to do this and I don't get why it's not working. Be happy to tell you my experience of how it's gone with my rain garden, because it's been in it for 10 years now. I love it.
That's great. Thank you a lot, Aleisha. We really appreciated this. It's really interesting.
It is. Aleisha, I just want to say thank you. And for you guys that on the bottom of Alicia's email, she has the saying here from David Sobel. If we want children to flourish, to become truly empowered, then let us allow them to love the earth before we ask them to save it. So I thought that was really a kind of a very powerful statement. So I just want to thank you for taking the time and putting this together, and especially because you have beginning to end and your trials and errors with all of that we've all, would have experienced. So yeah, if anyone has any questions, I'll get this information from Aleisha. I'll have her contact information with that, the best way for you to reach her, and we can go from there. So thank you again. We really appreciate you taking your time.
You're welcome. It's nice to meet you all virtually.
All right, so Leroy, back to you then.
Okey doke. I would let everyone know we had at one point 47 people on our meeting, and several of the places there were more than one person on the screen too. So we had a pretty good crowd, and let's hope that real soon we won't have to be doing it on Zoom. In the meantime, unless someone has something they would like to bring up, I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you all for coming, and thank you again to our speaker, Aleisha. And thank you for Bridget for lining up our programs for us. See you now. Stay warm.